Okay, so this is Of Mice and Men, Chapter 3. I'm recording this so anyone who's unable to get to class or whoever wants to take a refresher lesson can do so. This is Genius. If you enter a search says Genius and then Of Mice and Men, Chapter 3, you'll get this result. And this is an annotated version of Chapter 3. I like this because it gives you insights line by line through the chapter. Okay, so we're going to just dive right in. We've already had chapter 1 where George and Lenny were sitting by the riverbank. That was chapter 1. It describes scene 1 where George and Lenny decide rather than go to the ranch that night because they had walked a long time in the hot sun because the bus driver dropped them off 4 miles from the farm entrance and said, "Oh yeah, it's just around the corner." So they gave him a bum steer, and they'd been walking in the hot sun. And George says, "Let's just stay here the night. I like this place." And of course, that's when Lenny says he wants real dinner. He doesn't want ketchup with no beans with no ketchup. But anyway, so they spend the night, and then we had chapter 2, which was in the bunkhouse, and they meet all the characters of the novel. They met Curly's wife, the boss, Curly. They met Candy, Wit, uh, Slim. So we did a thorough thing of chapter 2, and now we're in chapter 3. So this is Zoom video number 4. I'm going to number it, and it's for chapter 3 of Mice and Men. Okay, here we go. Although there was an evening brightness showing through the windows of the bunkhouse, inside it was dark, and through the open door came the thuds and the occasional clangs of a horseshoe game, and now and then the sound of voices raised in approval or derision. Slim and George came into the darkening bunkhouse. Slim reached over the card table and turned on the tin-shaded lamplight. Instantly, the table was brilliant with light, and the cone of shade threw its brightness straight downward, leaving the corners of the bunkhouse still in the dusk. Slim sat down on a box, and George took his place next to him. So note the use of darkness and dusk in this paragraph. Steinbeck continues to light or lack thereof, and darkness almost as stage directions. The darkness of the bunkhouse is symbolic of the growing tension in this section. The killing of Candy's dog and Lenny breaking Curly's hand. All right, so this is okay. So we're in the bunkhouse, and it's dark, and Slim and George are going to have a deep conversation. So outside, the farmhands are playing horseshoes, and occasionally you hear cheering. So do not forget, the guys are outside playing horseshoes. We're never outside playing horseshoes. We only hear them outside playing horseshoes. So there's not a scene in the novel. And if you had this as a play, you wouldn't have them outside playing horseshoes. There's just a reference to it. You'd have the noise like being heard off stage. Okay. And then, so the spotlight here is center stage. And this is, I was in theater a lot, and I remember when they used to open the big cans of vegetables, and then they'd paint the can black, and then they would use that big can of vegetables as a spotlight. It was this long tunnel, and the bulb would be in the center, and the light would go down through the can to focus on whatever it was on stage that you wanted to have the spotlight on. And there was a guy who was the lighting engineer, and he would go up and adjust all the cans because there'd be like 20 of them going across the top, shining down on the stage. And in this case, if you were the lighting engineer, you might turn on 3 lights that went right down and centered onto the table where the 2 guys are sitting, and they're in the spotlight. And this is very important because it says Steinbeck foreshadows the corners of bunkhouse still are in dusk. And this is important, okay? Because we'll see in a minute why. All right, so this is like a description of the setting as we start chapter 3, and we're in the bunkhouse. Wasn't nothing, said Slim. I would have drowned them most of many ways. You no need to thank me. So Slim's saying there's no need to thank me for giving Lenny a pup because I wouldn't have kept him no way. It didn't mean anything to me. George said it wasn't much to you, maybe. It was a hell of a lot to him. Jesus Christ, I don't know how we'd ever get him to sleep in here. He'll want to sleep out there in the barn with him. we'll have trouble keeping him from getting right in the box with those pups. So he's saying Lenny is so elated that he got a baby puppy to take care of, and that we might not ever see him in the bunkhouse again. He's just stay in the barn. Wasn't nothing, repeated Slim. Say, you were right about him. Maybe he ain't bright, but I never seen such a worker. He damn near killed his partner, Buck and Barley. There ain't nobody can keep up with him. God almighty, I never seen such a strong guy. So this is where Lenny Small, it's ironic he's called Lenny Small when he's got such superhuman strength. It's emphasized that Lenny has a lot of strength. Lenny's physical strength, a dominant feature of who he is as a person and what he can accomplish, ironically, leads to more trouble in the future. Lenny is a very good worker, has a good work ethic, and is also a very strong guy, and may seem like a model ranch hand, but he's intellectually undeveloped. So he's actually going to be just the opposite, because he's kind of troublesome. There's things he does that, like remember when George said, you're not going to cause no trouble, are you? Right? And that was foreshadowing. So anyway, Lenny is powerfully strong, and Slim says he was a heck of a worker, kept throwing those bags of 100-pound bags of barley right on the back of the truck with ease. George spoke proudly. George's tone reveals his affection for Lenny. It hints at George is confident in Lenny's ability. So do you remember when we said George is like his parent, like always disciplining him? But he also is very proud of Lenny, and it shows that he loves Lenny. Just tell Lenny what to do, and he'll do it. Do it if it don't take no figuring. He can't think of nothing to do for himself, but he can take orders. There was a clang of horseshoes on iron outside and a little cheer of voices. Slim moved back slightly, so the light was not on his face. It was Slim's calm invitation to confidence. I wish somebody had put a picture here, because I love to emphasize what just happened here. And I think what I'm going to do is pause for a minute. You guys have got to let me pause for 1 sec. All right, so here it is. I just want to show you this real fast. What it is there's a thing called psychoanalysis, and it's where with Freud that people would lay on a couch, and then the psychiatrist is supposed to sit somewhere behind them. They're not supposed to be making eye contact with them. So he sits behind them, and then he asks them questions that encourage them to speak, and so speak their gut, spill their guts, so to speak, in the vernacular. So this is an example of a picture of how a psychiatrist would sit behind the patient, and the patient would lay like looking forward and just talk about what bothers them. Okay, so I just want to show you that real quick. All right, so I just wanted to show you how a psychiatrist looks, and how does this look? What just occurred here? It says Slim moved back slightly so the light was not on his face. So he's sitting back in the shadows, and then he says, like as if a prompting question to George. Funny how you and him string along together. It was Slim's calm invitation to confidence. Okay, so anyway, and then George says, what's funny about it? Asked George defensively. Oh, I don't know. Hardly none of the guys travel together. I hardly never seen two guys travel together. You know how the hands are. They just come and go and get their bunk and work a month, and then they quit and go out alone. Never seem to give a damn about nobody. It just seems kind of funny, a cuckoo like him and a smart guy like you traveling together. So see this? Slim saying, oh, you're traveling around with a kind of crazy guy like him, and you're just such a smart guy. So, it seems funny you guys are together, right? And this is going to prompt George to talk. He ain't no cuckoo, said George. He's dumb as hell, but he ain't crazy. And I ain't so bright neither, or I wouldn't be bucking barley for 50 a month and found. If I was bright, if I was even a little smart, I'd have a little place of my own, and I'd be bringing in my own crops instead of working for other people and not getting what comes out of the ground. So guys, this is the whole reason why George and Lenny want a little piece of land for themselves. They want a little piece of land for themselves because then they're bringing their own crops, and the money that's made is their own money instead of doing it all for somebody else. So this shows the idealistic thought of the American dream, how they waned for their own land and didn't want to work for anyone else apart from themselves. This is also known as subsistence, which means living off the land for your basic needs. And we learn a lot about George and Lenny and how they want to live. George is a realist, while Lenny is an idealist. All right, so he says, if I'm so bright, why don't I have my own land? George fell silent. He wanted to talk. Slim neither encouraged nor discouraged him. Slim sat back, quiet and receptive. See, that's exactly what the psychiatrist does. It ain't so funny, him and me going around together, George said at last. Him and me was both born in Auburn. I knowed his Aunt Claire. She took him when he was a baby and raised him up. When Aunt Claire died, Lenny just came along with me working. Got kind of used to each other after a little while. So this is an understatement. Although George finds Lenny difficult and a nuisance at times, he truly loves and cares for Lenny, and this is why he went through the trouble to keep their dream of a farm alive, to ensure that Lenny's spirit remains strong, and also to make sure Lenny's safe. But this is a story about George and Lenny and how the only thing they have left at home, they grew up in Auburn, the only thing they have left at home is the memories that they shared each other in childhood. Ah, said Slim. George looked over at Slim and saw the calm, godlike eyes. So, guys, if you look at the editorialized introduction of Slim in chapter 2, you'll see where they said that he has like moral authority and that he is like a god amongst whatever his word, whatever he said, his word was taken. Like that's it, right? Everybody trusted him, everybody believes in him. And it says he moved with majesty and that he had this quality about him. So you got to remember that like in the novel, Slim is going to be the good guy. Slim is a guy who helps George and is a good advisor for George. So godlike eyes were fastened on him. Funny, said George. I used to have a hell of a lot of fun with him. Used to play a lot of jokes on him because he was too dumb to take care of himself. But he was too dumb even to know you were playing a joke on him. And I had fun. Made me seem like goddamn smart alongside him. So what this is George is supposed to be taking care of Lenny because Lenny doesn't know a lot of stuff. George used to think it was real funny to play jokes on Lenny, and he's going to tell a story about something he did that almost got Lenny killed. Note how George's confidence could have been boosted by the fact that Lenny's less intelligent. It's always like good if you feel smarter than somebody else. And so George, like when he first starts hanging with Lenny, is kind of mean to Lenny and plays jokes on him. Why did do any damn thing I told him to do? If I told him to walk off a cliff, he'd walk off a cliff. That wasn't so damn much fun after a while. He never got mad neither. I beat the hell out of him and he could have bust every bone in my body just like with his hands, but he never lifted a finger against me. George's voice was taken on a tone of confession. Tell you what made me stop. One day, a bunch of guys was standing around up at the Sacramento River. I was feeling pretty smart. I turns to Lenny and says, jump in. And he jumps in. Couldn't swim a stroke. He damn near drowned before we could get him out. And he was so damn nice to me when I was pulling him out. Clean forgot I told him to jump in. Well, I didn't do nothing like that no more. He's a nice fella, said Slim. Guys don't need to, no sense to be nice fella. Seems to me sometimes it's just works the other way around. Take a real smart man and he ain't hardly ever a nice fella. George stacked the scattered cards and began to lay out his solitaire hand. The shoes thudded on the ground outside. At the windows, the light of the evening still made the window squares bright. I ain't got no people, said George. I seen guys that go around the ranches alone, and that ain't no good. They don't have no fun. After a while, they get mean. They just get wanting to fight all the time. Yeah, they get mean, said Slim agreed. They get so that they don't want to talk to nobody. Of course, Lenny's a goddamn nuisance most of the time, said George. But you get used to him and around the guy, and you can't get rid of him. He ain't mean. I ain't seen Lenny be mean. Of course he ain't mean, but he gets in trouble all the time because he's so goddamn dumb. Look what happened to Weeds. He stopped. George stops after he said, look what happened to Weeds, and he stopped in the middle of turning a card. He looked alarmed and peered at Slim. He ain't gonna tell nobody. What are you doing, Weed? Slim asked calmly. You won't tell? No, of course we wouldn't. What are you doing, Weed? Asked Slim again. Well, he sees this girl in a red dress. Damn bastard, dumb bastard that he is. He wants to touch everything it is, just wants to feel it. So he reaches out to feel the red dress, and the girl lets go out a squawk. And that makes Lenny get all mixed up, and he holds on because that's the only thing he can think to do. Well, this girl squawks and squawks. I was just a little bit off, and I heard the yelling, so I came running. And by the time I got Lenny was so scared, all he could think to do was hold on. I socked him on the head with a fence picket to make him let go. He was so scared he couldn't let go of the dress, and so damn strong, right? I was saying he did it with a 2x4. A 2x4 and a fence picket about the same size. Fence picket is like you build a fence, and each little board in the fence is a picket. So he took one of the boards that you'd have in a fence and hit Lenny in the head to make him let go of the girl. So when Lenny gets scared and somebody's screaming, he gets scared and he can't think, he just holds on to it like he's frozen in fear. Okay. Slim's eyes were level and unwinking. He nodded very slowly. So what happens? George carefully built up his line of solitaire. Well, that girl rabbits in and tells the law she been raped. The guys in weeds start out in a lynch squad for Lenny. So we sit in an irrigation ditch underwater all day, all the rest of the day. Got only our heads sticking out of the water and up under the grass that sticks out on the side of the ditch. And that night we scrambled out of there. Slim sat in silence for a moment. Didn't hurt the girl, huh? He asked finally. So Slim's trying to get like the full, complete story. And if Lenny had actually hurt the girl, Slim doesn't want to hear about this. But if he didn't really hurt the girl and it was just all a big misunderstanding, then Slim's okay with it. Anyway, hell no. He just scared her. I'd be scared too if he grabbed me, but he never hurt her. He just wanted to touch that red dress like he wants to pet them pups all the time. And he ain't mean, said Slim. I can tell a mean guy a mile off. Of course he ain't. And he'll do any damn thing Lenny came in through the door. He wore denim coat over his shoulders like a cape, and he walked hunched way over. Hi, Lenny, said George. How you like that pup now? Lenny said breathlessly. He's brown and white, just what I wanted. He went directly to his bunk and lay down, turned his face to the wall, and drew his knees up. George put his cards down his cards very deliberately. Lenny, he said sharply. Lenny twisted his neck and looked over his shoulder. Yeah, huh, George? What do you want, George? I told you not to bring that pup in here. Oh, what pup, George? I don't got no pup. George went quickly to him, grabbed over his shoulder, and rolled him. He reached down and picked up the tiny puppy from where Lenny was concealing it on his stomach. Lenny sat up quickly. Give it to me, George, George said. You got no right. And you get right out there and take that pup back to the nest. He's got to sleep with his mother. You want to kill him? Just born last night and you're going to take him out of the nest? You take him back or I'll tell Slim not to let you have him. Lenny held his hands out pleading. Give me me, George. Just give him back to me. I won't hurt him, George. I promise. Honest, I didn't. I just wanted to pet him a little. George handed the pup back to him. All right. You go back there quick and don't you take him out no more. You'll kill him the first thing you know. Lenny scrambled out of the room. Slim had not moved. His calm eyes followed Lenny out the door. Jesus, he's just like a kid, ain't he? Sure, he's just like a kid. There's no harm in him. Than a kid neither, except he's so strong. I bet he wouldn't come in here to sleep tonight. He'd sleep right alongside that box in the barn. Why, let him. He ain't doing no harm out there. It was almost dark outside. Now old Candy Swamper came in and went to his bunk, and behind him struggled the old dog. Hello, Slim. Hello, George. Didn't neither of you say horseshoes? I didn't like to play every night, said Slim. Candy went on. Either you guys got a slug of whiskey? My gut aches. I ain't, said Slim. I'd drink it myself. I had it. I ain't got a gut ache neither. Got bad gut ache, said Candy. Them goddamn turnips, they give me it. I knowed they was going to before I ate them. The thick-bodied Carlson came in out of the darkening yard. He walked over to the other end of the bunk and turned on the second shaded light. Darker than hell in here, he said. Jesus, How that black can put shoes. He's plenty good, said Slim. Damn right, said Carlson. You don't give nobody else a chance to win. He stopped and sniffed the air and still sniffing. Looked down at the old dog. God almighty, that dog stinks. Get him out of here, Candy. I don't know nothing that stinks as bad as an old dog. You get him out. Candy rolled over the edge of his bunk. He reached down and petted the ancient dog, and he apologized. I've been around him so much, I'd never noticed he stinks. Well, I can't stand it in here, said Carlson. That stink hangs around even after he's gone. He walked over to a heavy-lugged stride and looked down at the dog. Got no teeth, he said, all stiff with rheumatism. He ain't no good to nobody, Candy, and he ain't no good to himself. Why don't you shoot him, Candy? The old man squirmed uncomfortably. Well, hell, I had him so long, had him since he was a pup. I herded sheep with him, he said proudly. You wouldn't think of looking at him now, but he was the best sheepdog I ever seen. George said, I seen a guy in weeds at an Airedale that could herd sheep, learned it from the other dogs. All right, now I want to tell you something. This line deserves to be annotated. And the reason is George tries to change the subject because he can see how upset Candy is. And this is George's way of trying to get the subject away from the old dog, right? And to get Carlson to sit down and leave Candy alone. All right, so Carlson was not to be put off. See that? Wants him to get it back up, but Carlson's not to be put off. Look, Candy, this old dog just suffers himself all the time. If you was to take him out and shoot him right here in the back of the head, he leaned over and pointed to a spot. Right there. Why, he would never know what hit him. Candy looked over unhappily. No, he said softly. No, I couldn't do that. I had him too long. You don't have no fun. You don't have no fun, Carlson said, and he stinks to beat hell. Tell you what, I'll shoot him. Then you wouldn't have to. Then it won't be you that does it. Guys, I want you to think also about this. That the bunkhouse is their home, and here's Candy in his home, and somebody just walked in and said, "Let me take your dog out and shoot him." Right? So, what kind of privacy or what kind of rights do you have in your home if you're living in a bunkhouse on a ranch? Candy threw his legs off the bunk. He scratched the white stubble whiskers on his cheek nervously. I'm so used to him, he said softly. I haven't had him since he was a pup. Well, you ain't been being kind to him, keeping him alive, said Carlson. Look, Slim's bitch just got a litter right now. I'll bet Slim would let you have one of them pups to raise up, wouldn't you, Slim? The Skinner had been studying the old dog with calm eyes. Yeah, he said. You can have a pup if you want it. He seemed to shake himself free for speech. Carl's right, Candy. That dog ain't no good to himself. I wish somebody'd shoot me if I get old and a cripple. Candy looked helplessly at him, for Slim's opinions were law. See that, right? That he had the last word on things. And if the judge of the bunkhouse, the guy who everybody looks to for like the final word, says the dog's no good and should get shot, then there's not much of a period. Candy realizes the inevitability of the shooting of his dog because Slim appears to support it. This shows that Slim is respected. Yeah, remember that? It all was in that editorial when they first described Slim in chapter 2. Maybe it had hurt him, suggested Candy. I don't mind taking care of him. Carlson said, the way I'd shoot him, he wouldn't feel a thing. I'd bring the gun right there. He pointed with his toe to the back of the dog's head where he'd shoot him. Right in the back of the head. He wouldn't even quiver. Candy looked for help from face to face. It was dark outside by now. A young laboring man came in. His sloping shoulders were bent forward. and he walked heavily on his heels, as though he would carry an invisible grain sack. He went to his bunk and put his hat on the shelf. Then he picked up a pulp magazine from the shelf and brought it to the light of the table. Did I show you this, Slim? He said. Show me what? The young man turned the back of the magazine, put it down on the table, and pointed his finger. Right there, read that. Slim bent over it. Go on, read it aloud. Dear editor, Slim read slowly. I read your magazine 6 years, and I think it's the best on the market. I like stories by Peter Rand. I think he's a wingding. Give us more like The Dark Writer. I don't write many letters, just thought I would tell you I think your mag is the best dime's worth I ever spent. Slim looked up questioningly. Why'd you have me read that for? Whit said, go on, read the name at the bottom. Slim said, yours for success, Will Tenner. He glanced up at Whit again. What you want me to read that for? Whit closed the magazine impressively. Don't you remember Bill Tenner worked here about 3 months ago? Slim thought, the little guy who drove the cultivator? That's him, Whit said. That's the guy. You think he's the guy that wrote that letter? I know it. Bill and me was in here one day, and Bill had one of them books that had just come, and he was looking at it and he says, I wrote a letter. Wonder if they put it in the book. But it wasn't there. Bill says, maybe they're saving it for later. And that's why what they done, there it is. Guess you're right, said Slim. Got it right in the book. George held out his hand for the magazine. Let's look at it. Whit found the place again, but he did not surrender his hold on it. He pointed out the letter with his forefinger, and then he went to the bookshelf and laid the magazine carefully in. I wonder if Bill's seen it, he said. Bill and me worked in a patch of the field peas, run cultivators, both of us. Bill was a hell of a nice guy. All right, so this is kind of like an little interruption that's kind of interesting, right? That one of the guys, Bill Tenner, got his letter to the editor printed. During the conversation, Carlson had refused to be drawn in. He continued to look at the old dog. Candy watched him uneasily. At last, Carlson said, if you want me to, I'll put the old devil out of his misery right now and get it over. Ain't nothing left of him. Can't eat, can't see, can't even walk without hurting. Candy said hopefully, he ain't got no gun. The hell I ain't got a Luger right here. Won't hurt him none at all. Candy said, maybe tomorrow. Let's wait till tomorrow. I don't see no reason for it, said Carlson. He went to his bunk, pulled out his bag from underneath it, and took out the Luger pistol. Let's get it over with, he said. We can't sleep with this stinking around in here. He put the pistol in his hip pocket. Candy looked over a long time at Slim to try to get some reversal, and Slim gave him none. At last, Candy said softly and hopelessly, all right, take him. He did not look down at the dog at all. He lay back on his bunk and crossed his arms behind his head and stared at the ceiling. From the pocket, Carlson took out a little leather thong. He stooped over and tied it around the dog's neck. All the men except Candy watched. Come on, boy, come on, he said gently. And he apologetically to Candy, said he won't feel it. Candy did not move or answer him. He twitched the thong. Come on, boy. The old dog got slowly and shifted to his feet, following the gently pulling leash. Slim, said Carlson. Yeah, you know what to do. What do you mean, Slim? Take a shovel, said Slim shortly. Oh, sure, I get it. He led the dog in the darkness. George followed to the door and shut the door and let the latch fall gently into place. Candy lay rigidly in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Slim said loudly, one of them lead mules got a bad hoof. Got to get some tar on it. His voice trailed off. It was silent outside. Carlson's footsteps died away. The silence came into the room, and the silence lasted. George chuckled. I bet Lenny's out there in that barn with his pup. He won't want to come in here no more now that he's got that pup. Slim said, Candy, can I have one of those pups if you want? Candy didn't answer. The silence came on the room. It came out of the night and invaded the room. See, this is an example of personification. The silence came out of the night and came into the room, right? As if silence is some entity. George said, anybody want to play a little Escher? I'll play out a few with you, said Whit. That's a game of cards. They took places off of each other at the table under the light, but George did not shuffle the cards. He rippled the edge of the deck nervously and a little snapping noise drew the eyes of all the men in the room, so he stopped doing it. The silence fell on the room again. A minute passed, another minute. Candy lay still, staring at the ceiling. Slim gazed at him for a moment and then looked down at his hands. He subdued one hand with the other and held it down. There came a little gnawing sound from under the floor, and all the men looked down toward it gratefully. Old Candy continued to stare at the ceiling. Sounds like there's a rat under there, said George. We ought to get a trap down there. Whit broke out. What the hell's taking them so long? Lay out some cards, don't you? We ain't gonna get no acro game played this way. George held the cards tightly together and studied the backs of them. The silence was in the room again. A shot sounded in the distance. The men looked quickly over at the old man, every head turned toward him. For a moment, he continued to stare at the ceiling. Then he rode slowly over and faced the wall and lay silent. George shuffled the cards noisily and dealt them. Whit drew the scoring card to him and set the pegs to start. Whit said, I guess you guys really come here to work. How do you mean? Asked George. Whit laughed. Well, you come in on a Friday, you get 2 days to work till Sunday. I still don't see how you figure, said George. So what Whit's saying is, guys, you guys know how to play it. You come to work on a Friday, and then you only have to work the half day Friday and Saturday, and you get all the meals for the weekend. And if you want to quit on Sunday when there's no work, you've only worked 2 days, you get your pay, and you've had a bunch of meals. So this is, I'm just explaining what Whit's about to say. Whit laughed again. You do it. You do if you've been around these big ranches much. Guys that wants to look over a ranch comes in on Saturday afternoon. He gets his Saturday night supper and 3 meals on Sunday, and then he can quit on Monday morning after breakfast without turning his hand. But if you come to work on Friday noon, you get to put in a day and a half, no matter how you figure it. George looked levelly at him. We're going to stick around for a while. Me and Lenny's going to build up a stake. The door opened quietly, and the stable buck put his head in. A lean Negro head, lined with pain, the eyes patient. Mr. Slim? Slim took his eyes from old Candy. Hello, Crooks. What's the matter? You told me to warm up tar for the mule's hoof. I got it warm. Oh, sure, Crooks. I'll come right out and put it on. I can do it for you, Mr. Slim. No, I'll come and do it myself. He stood up. Crooks said, Mr. Slim, yeah. That big guy's messing around with your pups out there in the barn. Well, he ain't doing no harm. I give him one of them pups. Just thought I'd tell you, said Crooks. He's taking them out of the nest and handling them. That won't be no good. He won't hurt him, said Slim. I'll come along with you now. George looked up. If that crazy bastard's fooling around too much, just kick him out of there, Slim. Slim followed the stable buck out of the room. George dealt and Whit picked up the cards and examined them. Seen the new kid yet? What kid? Said George asked. Why, Curly's new wife. Yeah, I seen her. Ain't she a Lulu? I ain't seen that much of her, said George. Whit laid down the cards impressively. Well, stick around. You keep your eyes open. You'll see plenty. She ain't concealing nothing. I never seen nobody like her. She got the eye going all the time on everybody. I bet she even gives the stable buck the eye. I don't know what the hell she wants. The eye means that you're flirting. George asked casually, been any trouble since you got here? It was obvious that Whit was not interested in the cards. He laid his hand down and George scooped it in. George laid out his deliberate solitaire hand, 7 cards, 6 on top and 5 on top of those. Whit said, I see what you mean. No, they ain't been nothing yet. Curly's got yellow jackets in his drawers, but that's all so far. Every time a guy is around, she shows up, she's looking for Curly, or she thought she left something laying around and she's looking for it. Seems like she can't keep away from the guys, and Curly's pants is just crawling with ants, but they ain't nothing yet come of it yet. George said, she's going to make a mess. There's going to be a big mess about her. She's jailbait, all set on the trigger. That's Curly got his work cut out for him. Ranch full of guys on it is no place for a girl, especially one like that. Whit said, if you got ideas, you ought to come in town with us guys tomorrow night. Why? What's doing? Just the usual thing. We go to Sally's place, hell of a nice place. Old Sally's a laugh, always cracking jokes. Like she says when she comes up the front porch last Saturday night, Susie opens the door and then she yells over her shoulders, "Get your coats on, girls. Here comes the sheriff." She never talks dirty neither. Got 5 girls. So Susie's place is a whorehouse. What's it set you back? George asked. 2.5. You can get a shot for 2 bits. That's a shot of liquor. Susie got nice chairs to sit in too. If a guy just wants to flop, why, he can just sit in a chair and have a couple of, or 3 shots and pass the time of day. And Susie don't give a damn. She ain't rushing guys through and kicking them out if they don't want to flop. Might go and just look the joint over, said George. Sure. Come on. It's a hell of a lot of fun. She's cracking jokes all the time. Like she says one time, she says, I knew people that if they got a rag rug on the floor and a kiwi lamp on the phonograph, they think that they're running a parlor house. That's Clara's house she's talking about. So he's saying that Susie says that Clara's house is a dump and nasty. And Susie says, I know you boys want. She says, my girls is clean. She says, and there ain't no water in my whiskey. She says, if any of you guys want to look at a kiwi lamp and take your chance getting burned, why, you know where to go. She says, these guys around here walking bow-legged because they had to look at a kiwi lamp. So what she's saying is the guys can't walk anymore because they caught different kinds of diseases from the girls they were with. Right. And she said, just because you wanted to see a kiwi lamp, because she doesn't have a kiwi lamp. So she's making jokes about how Clara says, oh, I got a kiwi lamp. George asked, Clara runs the other house, huh? Yeah, said Whit. We don't go there. Clara's got $3 a crack and 35 cents a shot. And she got don't crack no jokes. But Susie's place is clean. She got nice chairs. Don't let no goo-goos in either. Now that is a epithet right here, goo-goos. So there's certain people that of certain ethnicities that she does not allow into her what do they call it, whorehouse. And so that's supposed to be like one of the things that makes it a better place. Me and Lenny's rolling up a steak, said George. I might go in for a set or and have a shot, but I ain't putting out 2.5. Now you see this, I told you with that if you do the what do they call it, if you do the Knights of the Round Table, that respect the honor of women. You see that? George would not do that. He would not go and be with a girl that you buy with money because George respects women. So that's part of the thing of the code of honor right there. Well, a guy got to have some fun sometimes, said Whit. The door opened and Lenny and Carlson came in. Lenny crept to his bunk and sat down, trying to not to attract attention. Carl reached under his bunk and brought out a bag. He didn't look at Candy, who still faced the wall. Carson found a little cleaning rag in the bag and a can of oil. He laid them on his bed and took the pistol, took out the magazine, and snapped the loaded shell from the chamber. He then fell to cleaning the barrel with a little rod. Then the ejector snapped. Candy looked over and looked for a moment at the gun before he looked back at the wall. Carlson said casually, Curly been in here yet? Nah, said Whit. What's eating at Curly? Carlson squinted down the barrel of the gun. He's looking for his old lady. I seen him going round and round outside. Whit said sarcastically. Spends half his time looking for her, and the rest of the time she's looking for him. Curly burst in the room excited. You guys see my wife? He demanded. She ain't been in here, said Whit. Curly looked threateningly around the room. Where's the hell Slim? He's out in the barn, said George. He's going to put some tar on a split hoof. Curly's shoulders dropped and squared. How long you been out there? 5, 10 minutes? Curly jumped out the door and banged after him. Whit stood up. I guess maybe I'd like to see this, he said. Curly's just spoiling, or he won't start for Slim. And Curly's handy, goddamn handy. Got in the finals, the Golden Gloves. He got newspaper clippings about it, he considered. But just the same, he better leave Slim alone. Nobody don't know what Slim can do. So they're expecting a fight, right? And Whit's saying that Curly has, as a lightweight boxer, won awards and been in the newspaper, but Slim's a big guy and you don't know how strong Slim would be. So if Curly goes after Slim thinking he's with his wife, Slim might fight back. Think Slim's with his wife, said George. Looks like it, Whit says. Course Slim ain't. Least I don't think Slim is, but like to see the fuss of if it comes to it. Come on, let's go. So now the whole bunkhouse is going to run out to watch the fight. George said, I'm staying right here. I don't want to get mixed up in nothing. Lenny and me, we're going to get a steak. So when there's a fight and everybody runs to see it, George and Lenny aren't going to go. Carlson finished the cleaning of the gun and put the bag and pushed the bag under his bunk. I guess I'd go out and look her over, he said. Old Candy lay still, and Lenny from his bunk watched George cautiously. When Lit and Carlson were gone and the door closed after them, George turned to Lenny. What you got on your mind? I ain't got nothing, George. Slim says I better not pet them pups so much for a while. Slim says it ain't no good for them, so I came right back. I've been good, good, George. I could have told you that, said George. Well, I wasn't hurting them none. I just had them in my lap petting them. George said, did you see Slim in the barn? Sure I did. He told me I better not pet the pup no more. Did you see that girl? You mean Curly's girl? Yeah. Did you see her in the barn? No. Anyways, I never saw her. I never seen her. You never seen Slim talking to her? She never came in the barn. Okay, George said. I guess them guys ain't going to see no fight. If there's any fighting, Lenny, you keep out of it. I don't want no fights, said Lenny. He got up on his bunk and sat over by the table across from George. Almost automatically, George shuffled the cards and laid the solitaire hand. He used a deliberate, thoughtful slowness. Lenny reached for the face of the card and studied it, and then he turned it upside down and studied it. Both sides the same, he says. George, why is both sides the same? I don't know, said George. That's just the way they make them. What was Slim doing in the barn when you seen him? Slim? Sure. You seen him in the barn and he told you not to pet the pup so much. Oh, yeah. He had a can of tar and a paintbrush. I don't know what for. You sure that girl didn't come in like she did come in here today? No, she never came, George sighed. You give me a good whorehouse anytime, he said. A guy can go and get drunk and everything out of his system all at once, no messes, and he knows how much it's going to set him back. These here jailbaits is just set on the trigger of a who's go. Lenny followed his words admirably and moved his lips a little to keep up. George continued. You remember Andy Cushman? Lenny went to grammar school. The one that his old lady used to make hotcakes for us when we were kids. Hotcakes is pancakes, Lenny asked. Yeah, that's it. You can remember anything if it's got to do with something to eat. George looked carefully at the solitaire hand. He put an ace up and he was scoring rack and piled on a 2, a 3, and a 4 diamonds on it. Andy's in St. Quentin right now on account of a tart. That means a bad girl, tart, said George. Lenny drummed his fingers on the table, George. George, how long is it going to be before we have a little place so we can live off the fat of the land, have wabbits? I don't know, said George. We got to get a stake together. I know a little place we can buy cheap, but it ain't giving it away. Old Candy turned slowly over. His eyes were wide open. He watched George carefully. Lenny said, tell me about the place, George. I just told you about it last night. Go on, George. Tell me about the place. Well, it's 10 acres, said George. Got a little windmill, got a little shack on it. It's got a chicken run. It's got a kitchen, orchard, cherries, apples, peaches, cots, nuts. Got a few berries. There's a place for alfalfa and plenty of water to flood it. There's a pig pen and wabbits, George. No place for rabbits now, but I could easily build a few hutches and we'd get some alfalfa for the rabbits. Damn white, said Lenny. You goddamn white, I could. George stopped working the cards. His voice was growing warmer. And we could have a few pigs. I could build a smokehouse like the one my grandpa had. And when we kill a pig, we could smoke the bacon and the hams and make sausage and all that like. And when the salmon come up the river, we could catch a few hundred of them and salt them down and smoke them. We could have them for breakfast. They ain't nothing so nice as a smoked salmon. When the fruit come in, we could can it. Tomatoes, they'd be easy to can. Every Sunday, we'd kill a chicken or a rabbit. Maybe we'd get a cow or a goat. And the milk so goddamn thick you could cut it with a knife and take it out with a spoon. Lenny watched him with wide eyes, and old Candy watched him too. Lenny said, You could live off the fat of the land. Sure, said George. All kinds of vegetables in the garden. And if we want a little whiskey, we could sell a few eggs or something, or some milk. We could just live there. We belong there. There wouldn't be no more running around the country and getting fed by a Jap cook. No, sir. We just have a place where we belonged and no sleep in a bunkhouse. Tell about the house, George, Lenny begged. Sure, we'd have a little house and a room for ourselves, a little fat iron stove. In the winter, we'd keep a fire going in it. And if it ain't enough land so we could have to work too hard, maybe 6 or 7 hours a day, and we wouldn't have to buck no barley 8 hours a day. And when the crop came in, while we'd be there to take the crop up, we'd know what come of our planting. And rabbits, said Lenny eagerly, and I'd take care of them and tell how I'd do it, that, George. Sure, you'd have an alfalfa patch and you'd have a sack and you'd fill the sack and bring it to the rabbit cages and they'd nibble, 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 said Lenny, the way they do. I seen them. Every 7 weeks or so, George continued, them does not throw a litter, so we'd have plenty of rabbits to eat or to sell, and we'd keep a few pigeons to go flying around the windmill like they'd done when I was a kid. He looked raptly at the wall over Lenny's head. And it'd be our own, and nobody could can us. And if we don't like a guy, we could say, "Get the hell out of here!" And by God, he'd have to do it. And if a friend came along, we could say, "Hey, yeah, we have an extra bunk." We'd say, "You want to spend the night?" Or by God, he would. And we'd have a setter dog and a couple of cats. But we ought to watch out for them cats. You don't want to get them rabbits. Lenny breathed hard. You just try to get my rabbits. I'll break their goddamn necks. I'll smash them with sticks. He subsided, grumbling to himself, threatening the future cats, which might dare to disturb the future rabbits. George sat entranced with the picture in his mind. When Candy spoke, they both jumped as though they'd been caught doing something reprehensible. Candy said, "You know a place like that?" George was on guard immediately. "Suppose I do. What's it to you?" "You don't need to tell me where it's at. Might be any place." "Sure," said George. "That's right. You couldn't find it in 100 years." Candy went on excitedly. "How much they want for a place like that?" George watched him suspiciously. "Well, I could get it for $600, and the old people who owns it is flat bust. Old lady needs an operation, so you know what? You got nothing to do with us." Candy said, I ain't much good with only one hand. I got one hand right here on this ranch. I lost my hand right here on this ranch. That's why they got me swamping. And they give me $250 because I lost my hand. And I got 250 more saved up right here in the bank right now. That's $300. And I got 50 more coming at the end of the month. Tell you what, he leaned forward eagerly. Suppose I went with you guys and the 350 bucks I'd put it in. I ain't too much good, but I could cook and tend the chickens and hoe the garden some. How'd it be? George half closed his eyes. I'd have to think about it. We was going to do it by ourselves. Candy interrupted. I'll make a will and leave my share to you guys in case I kick. Because I ain't got no relatives or nothing. You guys got money? Maybe we could get it right now. George spat on the floor disgustingly. We got $10 between us. Then he said thoughtfully, look, if you and Lenny work for a month and don't spend nothing, we get $100. That'd be 450. I bet we could swing her for that. Then you and Lenny could go get her started, and I'd go get a job and make up the rest. And you could sell eggs and stuff like that. They fell into a silence. They looked at each other amazed. This thing that they never really believed was going to come true was coming true. George said reverently, Jesus Christ, I bet you we could swing her. His eyes were full of wonder. I bet you we could swing her, he repeated softly. Candy sat on the edge of his bunk. He scratched the stump of his wrist nervously. I got her 4 years ago, he said. They'll can me pretty soon. Just as soon as I can't swamp no bunkhouses, they'll put me out on the country. Maybe if I give you guys some money, you'll get me hoe the garden, even after I ain't no good no more. And I'll wash the dishes, and I'll little chicken stuff like that. But I'll be on my own place, and I'll be let to work on my own place. He said miserably. You seen what they just done to my dog tonight? They says he wasn't no good to himself or nobody else. When they can me here, I wish somebody'd shoot me, but they won't do nothing like that. I won't have no place to go, and I can't get no more jobs. I have $30 coming till time you guys ready to quit. George stood up. We'll do her, he said. We'll fix up the old place and we'll live there. He sat down again. They all sat still, all bemused by the beauty of the thing. Each mind was popped into the future when this lovely thing should come about. George said wonderingly, suppose there was a carnival that came to town, or a ball game, or any damn thing. Old Candy nodded in appreciation of the idea. We could go to her, said George. We wouldn't have to ask anybody if we could. We'd just say, hey, well, let's go to her. And we would. We'd just milk the cows, sling some grain to the chickens, and we'd go to her. And put some grass out for the rabbits, Lenny broke in. I would never forget to feed them. When we gonna get to it, George? In a month, right? Squawk in 1 month. Know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write them old people that owns that place that will take her. And Candy can send $100 to bind her. Sure will, said Candy. They got a stove there? Sure, they got a nice stove, burns coal or wood. I'm gonna take a pup, said Lenny. I bet by Christ he likes it there, Jesus. Voices were approaching from outside. George said quickly, don't tell nobody about this. Just us three and nobody else. They're liable to can us if they know we got a stake. Just go on like we was gonna buck barley the rest of our lives, and all of a sudden someday we'll get up and take our pay and scram out of here. Now this is another one that should be annotated right here, right? Because George says very specifically, right? Don't tell anybody, and it's very funny because in the next chapter, oops. Okay, just go on like we was gonna. Okay, so Lenny and Candy nodded and they were grinning with delight. Don't tell nobody, Lenny said to himself. Candy said, George, huh? I had to shot that dog myself, George. I shouldn't let nobody else ought to let a stranger shoot my dog. The door opened, Slim came in, followed by Curly and Carlson and Wit. Slim's hands were black with tar and he was scowling. Curly hung close to his elbow. Curly said, well, I didn't mean anything by it, Slim. I just asked you. Slim said, you've been asking me too often. I'm getting goddamn sick of it. If you can't look after your own goddamn wife, what do you expect me to do about it? You lay off of me. I just trying to tell you I didn't mean anything, said Curly. I just thought you might have seen her. Why don't you tell her to stay hella home where she belongs, said Carlson. You let her hang around bunkhouses and pretty soon you're going to be have something on your hands and you won't be able to do nothing about it. Curly ripped down to Carlson. You ought to keep out of this less than you want to step outside. Carlson laughed. You goddamn punk, he said. You try to throw a scare into Slim and you couldn't make it stick. Slim throwed a scare into you and you're yelling like a frog belly. I don't care if you're the best welterweight in the country. You come for me and I'll kick your goddamn head off. Candy joined the attack with joy. Glove full of Vaseline, he said disgustingly. Curly glared at him. His hand slipped onto the pass and lighted on Lenny and Lenny was still smiling with delight at the memory of the ranch. So Curly sees Lenny laughing and thinks he's laughing at him. Curly stepped over to Lenny like a terrier. What the hell you laughing at? Lenny looked up at him blankly. Huh? Then Curly's rage exploded. Come on, you goddamn bastard! Get on your feet! No son of a bitch is gonna laugh at me. I'll show you who's yellow. Lenny looked helplessly at George, and then he got up and tried to retreat. Curly was balanced and posed. He slashed out at Lenny with his left and then smashed down his nose with the right. Lenny gave a cry of terror. Blood welled from his nose. George, he cried, let me alone, George. He backed until he was against the wall, and Curly followed, slugging him in the face. Lenny's hands remained at his sides. He was too frightened to defend himself. George was on his feet yelling, get him, Lenny. Don't let him do it. Lenny covered his face with his huge paws and bleated in terror. He cried, make him stop, George. Then Lenny attacked his stomach and cut off his wind. Slim jumped in. You dirty rat, he cried. I get him off myself. George got up with his hand and grabbed Slim. Wait a minute, he shouted. He cupped his hands around his mouth and yelled, get him, Lenny. Lenny took his hands away from his face and looked about at George, and Curly smashed him in the eyes. The big face was covered with blood. George yelled again. I said, get him. Curly's fist was swinging when Lenny reached out. The next minute, Curly was flopping like a fish on a line, and his closed fist was lost in Lenny's big hand. George ran down the room. Okay, let go of him, Lenny, let go. But Lenny watched in terror the flopping little man who he held. Blood ran down Lenny's face. One of his eyes was cut and closed. George slapped him in the face again and again and told Lenny, while Lenny held onto the closed fist. Curly was white and shrunken by now and was struggling, and he'd become weak. He was crying, his fist lost in Lenny's paw. George shouted over and over again, let go of his hand, Lenny, let go. Slim, come help me. Come on, you guys. We've got to get, while the guy got his any hand left. Suddenly Lenny let go of the hold. He crouched cowerly against the wall. You told me to do, George, he said miserably. Curly sat down on the floor and looked in wonder at his crushed hand. Slim and Carlson bent over him. Then Slim straightened up and regarded Lenny with horror. You got to take him to a doctor, said him. He looks like he's got every bone in his hand busted. I didn't want to, Lenny said. I didn't want to hurt him. Slim said, Carlson, you got the candy wagon hitched up. We got to take him into Soledad and get him fixed up. Carlson hurried out. Slim turned to the whimpering Lenny. It ain't your fault, he said. This punk sure had it coming. By Jesus, he ain't hardly got a hand left. Slim hurried out and in a moment returned with a tin cup of water. He held it to Curly's lips. George said, Slim, we're going to get canned now. We need the steak. Will Curly's old man can us? Slim smiled wryly. He knelt down beside Curly. You got your senses in your hand enough to listen? You got your senses in hand enough to listen, he said. Curly nodded. Well, you listen, Slim went on. I think you got your hand caught in a machine. And if you don't tell nobody what happened, we ain't gonna. But if you tell and try to get this guy canned, and we'll tell everybody, and then will you get the laugh? I won't tell, said Curly, and he avoided looking at Lenny. Buggy wheels sounded outside. Slim helped Curly up. Come on now, Carlson's going to take you to the doctor. And he helped Curly out the door. The sounds of the wheels drove away. In a moment, Slim came back into the bunkhouse. He looked at Lenny, still crouched fearfully in the wall. Let's see your hands, he asked. Lenny struck out his hands. God almighty. I hate to have you mad at me, Slim said. George broke in. Lenny was just scared, he explained. He didn't know what to do. I told you nobody ought to fight with him. No, I guess it was Candy I told. Candy nodded solemnly. That's just what he done. That's just what he said. Right this morning when Curly first came, lit right into your friend and you says, he better not fool with Lenny if he knows what's good for him. And that's just what you says to me. George turned to Lenny. It ain't your fault, he said. You don't need to be scared no more. You just did what I told you to do. Maybe you better go go in the washroom and clean your face. You look like hell. Lenny smiled with his bruised lip. I don't want no trouble, he said. He walked toward the door, but just before he came, he said, he turned back, George, what is it? I can still tend to rabbits, can't I, George? Sure, you ain't done nothing wrong. I didn't mean no harm, George. Well, get the hell out and wash your face. All right, so guys, there we are. That's the end of chapter 3. It was a very long chapter, uh, and I hope that you enjoyed it. I just want to give the opportunity to any student who misses class to watch these videos so they can catch up. Okay, and so have a good rest of the night, and I will see you in class.